Hello world and welcome to HaXeZ, where today we are looking at Realistic Mission 15 from HackThisSite.org. HackThisSite is a website that allows you to learn and test out your hacking skills on a number of simulated web applications. Yes, today we're looking at 15, which is the only challenge to be rated as insane difficulty. Seculus Limited, $900 billion we spent on guns this year. Now rumours are spreading that Seculus Limited is developing an awful laser aided weapon and that they already have patents pending. Please try to find out what their latest patent is about. Difficulty rating insane. I've not completed this one yet. I'm going to be doing it step by step, so let's have a look. We receive a message from somebody called HTML. I'm not sure if that's their name or whether that's a coding error, but hey. Hi, please help me. If you're against war like me, rumours are that the Seculus Limited company is developing an awful new laser-aided weapon and that they already have patents pending. Please try to find out what their latest patents are about. People say you know your shit and that you're an amazingly good hacker. It should not be a problem for someone with your skills. What I know is that Seculus Limited hired a new programmer who was responsible for the server and he password protected everything, always with a different password. I heard about him. He is one of the he's the kind of person who locks the front door twice but leaves the back door open. Perhaps that's a hint. If you think like me, please help me fight these people that make money with war. No comment. So, if we go to the website, we can see that it's a sort of plain website with a number of links about us, industry leader in defense and special mission lasers. We're proud of our product spectrum and reputation, which basically, so we've got a home button which takes us back to home. We have products, anti-personnel, lightweighted anti-personnel laser weapon. These look like something from Star Trek and Star Wars. We have a questions page, which is a form which allows you to send questions to, I assume, like a product specialist. We have an imprint page, and we have a jobs page. Now, first thing to note is if we look at the page source of the home page, there is an email address, a user, and a name, Susie Slack. As with all reconnaissance phases during a penetration test, anything you note like usernames and email addresses could be useful later on, so make a note of it and save it for later. If we go to the the questions page, and submit it to see what happens, we get this page. The GIF that loads to show that your email has been sent is being loaded from images.ok.gif. However, if we go back now and go to the jobs page, and then we have an option there to send our application, which is another form. So if we type test on that and click send, if we inspect this page, is that this image is loading from _backups _images. So it's different from the questions one. So that suggests that we have an _backups directory. And what you'll see is we have a directory _backups_ with a backup.zip file in it. We can view the images directory, but what we're interested in is this backups.zip. And if we download it and head to our virtual machine, I have a Windows virtual machine running, and we try to open the backup zip file and extract it, we should get prompted for a password, and we don't know the password. However, we can see inside, got a bunch of error messages, we can see inside the password protected zip. Got some PHP files in the internal messages folder, and then we've got some miscellaneous files which includes the index.htm file. Now, one could assume that this index.htm file is the main index page that's displaying when you load the site. And what that means is, if that is in fact the correct index page, then we know something about the contents of that zip file. And what we can do is a known plain text attack, where it's a bit like during World War II when Alan Turing and the Bletchley team cracked the Enigma machine cipher. The way they did it was obviously huge genius in the mechanics that built the machine. I think it was Colossus, or Christopher he called it, and then Colossus came afterwards. The genius of that machine. But Nazis used to sign off all their messages with Heil Hitler. And because we knew they signed it off with that message every single time, we could then use that message to decode the rest of the document. Now, while it doesn't contain all the letters of the alphabet, it does contain some, which we then could use to decode the rest of the document. So as we know the HTML, the index.htm file and the contents of that, we can then try to calculate the password of the encrypted file due to the differences between the unencrypted HTML and the encrypted HTML. So what you need to do is you need to save the page. So if you right click it, click Save As, but make sure you select Web Page HTML only, and then you can click Save, because you want to ensure that you are only getting what's going to be inside the compressed archive. Then if we head to our virtual machine and minimize that a sec, what we can do is, if we bring up WinAce and we want to create a new one, we can select the files that we want to use. So I've saved it on my OneDrive, but say here I've got the index.htm file, so I want to select that because that's the file I want to encrypt. But we need to make sure that we use the same method that was used during the encryption. Now you could probably run strings on the encrypted file and get the information that way, but through trial and error I've deduced, and through guides, that the compression type is maximum. You want to select the file format to zip, so select your index.htm, change it to zip, change the options to compression maximum, and then on the encryption method you want to set it to 256-bit AES encryption, and then click add, and that should save the file to your desktop. Now what you want to do is you want to compare the two files. So you want to compare your encrypted backup and you want to compare the file you've just encrypted. So if I get backup.zip open and I head into the location where the index.htm is, and then if I get the file that I just made and open that, and that only contains index.htm, what you should be able to see is that the file sizes are the same. So index.htm there, the compressed file size is 1245 bits, and index.htm in the file that I've created, that's compressed, that's also 1245 bits. Brilliant. So now that those are there, put them in a directory that you'll be able to access from another virtual machine. What you'll need to do is you'll need to get a Linux virtual machine up and running and install the Git repository pkcrack. And what pkcrack does is it's essentially what we were talking about a moment ago, where it's a known plain text attack. And I've already pre-populated the syntax as I didn't want to sort of go through everything, mistype it and make mistakes. But you can see there I'm running sudo pkcrack -C, and this is going to be the source of the encrypted directory. So I've got it in my OneDrive and it's backup.zip, so that's the file we downloaded from the website. Then with a lowercase c we specify the file inside the directory that we want to compare the unencrypted file to. So it's in the MISC files from different folders directory in index.htm. Then with a -P you specify the folder you want, the directory you want to compare it to, which is the index.zip that we created using WinAce. And then we specify the file that we want to compare it to that's within that directory with the lower p, which in this case is index.htm. Then you run it, and it should start cracking away. And this can take a long time, so what I'll do is I'll pause the video and I'll come back when it's cracked. And we are back, and it looks like pkcrack has successfully cracked the zip file and has saved it as decrypted_file. And if we head over to the files, you can see that I've saved it as decrypted too. And inside we got internal messages, message auth, message show, and we've got the location of the index.htm, and there's also a shell.php there, which is interesting. Could be a reverse shell. So in internal messages we have two files, message auth and message show, and if we open those up in Sublime, we can see they appear to be authentication scripts. So there's going to be some sort of messaging system on the web application somewhere which requires authentication to log in. And what you can see is this is being called by the next file, message show, but it's saying it's prompting for user inputs, specifying what characters you can input, and storing your input in a variable called message passwords and message_user. And it's checking the format of the username there, which is separated by a colon. Now what's interesting is we've seen this layout before. If we head back to the index page and we view the page source, we can see that the web admin : Susie Slack. So that's like a username and password. Not sure why they would code it into the main page, but hey. So it looks like web admin and Susie Slack are going to be the username and password that we can log in with. However, it's not quite that. But also, if we head over to message show, because this authentication script is being called by message show, we can see we have another file called internal messages. So these files are all inside the internal messages directory. And this is an internal messages.php file which we haven't seen. So if we go to internal messages / internal messages.php, we get what appears to be a read messages form. Now we've got a user here, admin. We've got our Jay Bardas, who was the network administrator for the Holy Word High School, I believe, who put all the restrictions in place, maybe. Dr. Nuts. Cool. If we put in test, we get a generic error message saying wrong username and password. We could try the password this way. For some reason it doesn't work. And again, this is where like the logic of the sort of development behind this confuses me, because it's the same files, right, and it's the same parameters, so yeah, it's a bit confusing. But now that we've created this whole time I've been using Burp Suite to capture and intercept messages, so it's creating a history at the moment because I haven't got intercept on. But if we go to Burp Suite, what we can see there is I've just created a post to message show with the username and password. Now we don't want to post a message show, we want to post a message auth because we want to authenticate. So if we send this to repeater, and first we change this to message auth, and then we come down here and we change the parameters. Now I'm not sure why you need to do this either, because this should all work. It's because it's got to be going to a different script, I assume. It just seems a bit sideways the way it's been implemented, but we know what the parameters need to be, or what the variables need to be. So we know that the first one needs to be message password. And the second one needs to be message username. Now, we need to URL encode the space, and Susie Slack's username does have, or password does have a comma, so we're going to include that. We also need to include and file name equals ... to directory traversal up index.htm. Now, again, I'm not sure why it needs this either. I'm a bit lost when it comes to all this. I've had to look at guides myself, but I can't see why it needs to go up to index.htm to post to message off, or why that file name is required. I can't see any sort of reference to it being required, because the file you're going to be viewing is show messages.php, or message show.php, which should show your messages wherever it's calling it from, unless it's a different file. I digress. Again, this one's all a bit insane. It's an insane difficulty, and I wouldn't have completed it without following guides, to be honest. But now that we have that, Susie Slack, username admin, file name equals index.htm. But this is also confusing. So the username is admin, but remember the actual username in the web page source was webadmin. But if we send that now, we get set admin OK. Brilliant. So that should mean we can now view the messages. And it says, hi admin, I added more secure authentication check script to the admin area directory, and I stored a file with the source code there. Check it if you want to, you will see it's ultra secure. So we've just jumped through all these hoops to find this directory called admin area, which is a bit crap really. You could have brute forced it. You could have used derb to find this. I'm pretty sure admin_area would be in any sort of word list that's worth its weight in using. So, yeah, it's a bit silly. Okay, so we've learned of this admin_area through a needlessly complex method of submitting a form post request to another site, when we could have just used a tool like derb or GoBuster in order to discover it. There was no need for us to go through all that process to get here. I'm sure admin_area is in every word list worth its weight in gold or whatever. But we're here, and we get forbidden, so it seems like a huge waste of time and that we've hit a brick wall. However, if we think back to when we cracked the PK, when we use pkcrack to crack the zip file, there's a file in there that we haven't yet looked at, and that file is shell.php. So if we get that and open it with Sublime, well, first let's go and have a look at it. If we go to admin area /shell.php, we get a login prompt, and we don't have any credentials for it. No matter what we type, we're going to get it come back and tell us we're not a valid user. So if we go and look at the source, we can see here that the username is root, and that's being passed to a variable called shell user root, and the password has been removed as it's a backup file, but that's being passed to a parameter, to a variable called shell password root. And the authentication method is a PHP module, I'm not sure what it's called PHP user auth, or PHP auth user. Now, I'm not too sure why this is vulnerable, but it's fun, it's great. It is a great method to do something, and I've tried researching it by looking up PHP auth user vulnerability when cancelling, or PHP auth user inputting variables, and I couldn't find anything. So if you know why this particular implementation is vulnerable, I'd love to receive a message, and you can tell me things I don't know. I have tried researching it. I spent about an hour trying to find out why it is. And I found a bunch of other seemingly related articles and Stack Overflow posts which were not related. But what we can do is we can come up here and we can grab this shell password root. And then if we go back to the web browser and we pop that variable in the username and just put anything in the password and click sign in, then when it comes back, if we click cancel, what happens is that's the hash, the root hash that's saved, that it's checking the authentication against. So I'm just going to make a note of that quickly. But if I come back and I click refresh and I don't put anything, I click cancel, it goes away. But you can do it for other variables as well. So say if I wanted to know, I know the admin email address is there, but like we could just grab the admin email address through there just to sort of show that it does work. And it pops up admin@seculus.com. This is amazing. I love this vulnerability. I'm not sure why it's a vulnerability, whether it's just poorly implemented code or whether there was a problem with that particular PHP module. I think it's called a module. But either way, I think that's wonderful. I really like that. So yeah, let's grab the root one again. And let's refresh the page. Pop in the variable. Click sign in, click cancel, get the hash. Now, I did try to crack this hash in John, but it is a hash of a hash. So the original password has been hashed to an MD5 and then hashed again. We know it's an MD5 because we can run check this hash or hash ID on it. But let's just go to, I think it's crackstation.net. And we can paste the hash in here. That was difficult. I was worried I might be a robot then. And then that has this hash already in its databases. It doesn't crack it. It's got a huge like rainbow table or another set of hashes which it compares it to. But we can see there that the result is foobar. So we cracked it and cracked it again. And that's the password. So now, if we try to go to shell.php, we already know the username is root from the PHP script, and now we know the password is foobar, or fucked up beyond all recognition. And we get this really cool PHP terminal. And what you can do is you can run commands. Boop. And you can see there you've got a directory called test, you've got viewpatterns.php, so if we go ahead and try and access that, we get another login prompt, which we are unauthorized to access. If we go back to the shell, we have a directory called test. Let's take a look what's in there. We get this check user pass.c.zip. So if we save the file, oh, let's open it with the archiver actually. Expanded it. Extracting it, and then we can open it with Sublime. Now again, I'm not much of a coder, I'll admit that. I do some coding, I do bash for work when I'm too lazy to do something manually. I'll script a bunch of loops to automate my job. I've done a bit of Python, like I've gone through parts of that Black Hat Python book, and I did Python at uni, but it's just something I've been too lazy with. However, you can see in this is the authentication script for the view pattern that we're trying to log into. You can see there password, you got the username, and what it's doing is it's doing a string concatenation to 200 characters, so it's limiting that input box to 200 characters. Now whenever there's limits in place, there could be the potential for a buffer overflow. So we know it's 200 characters, however I know it's more than that. But what we can do is because we know it's a 200 character limit and we know that the username or password is expecting a Y, we can come back to our terminal quickly and we can generate a string of Y's 225 characters long. Then if we go to view pattern.php and we paste this in, we get a buffer overflow and we complete the mission. Yeah, I'm glad that one's over. A lot of it I didn't understand. Now I'm not sure whether that was because of the way variables were coded, like the differences in usernames between admin and web admin. That threw me off completely. You would have thought there would have been some like consistency between those two, so that users didn't run around chasing their tail for ages. I didn't understand the need for the second. Well, first of all, the PK crap bit I really enjoyed, and it was the part I wasn't looking forward to, because sometimes old tools, they don't work that well anymore, especially if you're like using a tool from 4 or 5 years ago on Windows 10. You know, you may have to run it in compatibility mode, the libraries might not be there. The same with PK crack. So yeah, that was with WinAce, and then PK crack on Linux. I couldn't get that working the first few times. That was my errors though. But that was the bit I was mostly worried about. I didn't have a clue what was coming up next with regards to that whole post method to that PHP auth. Oh, that was horrible. And I don't understand why you can't just submit the password to that box, because that's effectively what you're doing, is you're posting Susie Slack with the comma, and it's allowing you to view the messages. Who knows? It wouldn't be a challenge if you could just do that, but yeah. So then after that we had the shell.php, because we found the admin area from the messages. That was a really cool exploit, and I'd love to know more about why that works. I've looked at PHP vulnerabilities and CVEs to see if there is like a reason why that happens. So far I haven't found anything. I might do some more looking after this video. And yeah, this buffer overflow, which I sort of just breezed through because I've honestly had enough of this challenge at the moment. But yeah, that was interesting learning that. I obviously understand the concept of buffer overflows. It's been explained to me like the bucket when it leaks over. You know, you fill a bucket up too much, the data can then be executed. So yeah, this challenge wasn't a lot of fun. This challenge was a nightmare, and I've been working on it all this morning, and I have followed guides. I have viewed guides to do it as well. I would not have got anywhere without like Chuck Moore's video on YouTube. That guy's a legend, way smarter than me. But hey, I'm here to learn. I'm sure you are too. You know, we can't know everything. But yeah, I don't feel qualified enough to actually give a lessons learned today. I don't know enough about why the PHP syntax was vulnerable. The buffer overflow, definitely not. I hope you enjoyed it though, and I hope it helped you get through the challenge if you were struggling on it. That is the insane one out the way. The last one is just a harder one, so we are moving on to the final mission after this. Yes. And then I might move on to the JavaScript ones and try to push the application ones as far back as possible, because no. Anyway, kind regards.